Together, this is going to be a game breakdown of special summons. This is requested by XX Infantry. Insert random numbers here. I don't know your random numbers at the end of your name because I'm not looking at my computer right now because my computer is closed. But yeah, anyways, so I'm going to basically go ahead and explain what kind of special summons there are in the game and how they work. So let's go and get started. Now, the first card you asked about are monsters or special summons from the hand by their own inherent effect. Good examples are Cyber Dragon, Judgment Dragon, Dark Arm Dragon, X-Saber Fall Troll. Basically, these are monsters you can special summon when you meet a condition. Like Judgment Dragon's condition is when you have 4 or more Lice Runs in the graveyard. So when you have 4 or more, you can special summon him from your hand. Now, these effects only apply from the hand, not from the grave. A lot of players do get confused. Because sometimes it won't say from the hand. It'll just say you can special summon this card, and they're like, oh, in graveyard, it's special summon. No, it's only from the hand. Now, this is allowed because the effect says so. Normally, you cannot play a high-level monster like that, obviously, but the effect states that when you have a certain condition set up, you can play it. That's how that works. Same goes for X-Saber Fall Troll and stuff like that. Cyber Dragon, you have to have no monster, or you have to have no monster in your opponent has to have at least 1, stuff like that. So when you're supposed to summon them, it's just a condition. These kind of summons don't use the chain, so they can be Blackborn of Heaven. You can Thunder King Ryu them. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. But they're an inherent special summon. They don't use the chain. The next kind of special summon is Exceed Summon and Synchro Summon. They're also inherent special summons. These monsters are special summoned by game mechanics. So, since they're special summoned by game mechanics, they're inherent because nothing's summoning them. They're being summoned by like their own game mechanics. So, again, these can only be summoned in this way from your extra deck, not your graveyard. And they can't be. If you don't know this, if one of these is returned to your hand, it goes back to your extra deck. It doesn't go back to your hand. Like I've seen people do that. Like they'll have this out, someone will play compulsory, they'll pick it up and then like normal summon it. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. Sorry. So remember that these cannot go to the hand or the deck; they go back to your extra deck. And they can't be special from your graveyard by this. Like it has to be from your extra deck. It has to be. So, and obviously you special summon them by meeting the conditions of whatever they say. I mean, they say 500 different things. So now, one type of text is like Chaos Sorcerer. Now, Chaos Sorcerer says this card can only be special summoned by removing from play 1 dark and 1 light monster. Now, this is confusing because what it means is you can only special summon from your hand by doing that. You have to special summon from your hand the first time by using this effect. But after that, you can then Monster Reborn it, Call the Haunted. It is kind of confusing because it does say this card can only be special summoned by, and I guess that is a bit confusing. But what it actually was meant to refer to is the initial special summon of this card is by doing such, but it didn't sound right. So they said this card can only be special summoned by. Now, like I said, these kind of monsters that say this card can only be special summoned by X and Y. Those cards can be Monster Reborn, Call the Haunted, all kinds of stuff like that. Unless their summon is negated. If their summon is negated, like you go Banish Light, Banish Dark, Special Summon, they go Solemn Warning, you cannot Monster Reborn him because the first summon wasn't completed. Understand that. That's a very big thing to remember because if it gets negated and you Monster Reborn and you target it and you don't realize it until later, it's a game loss. So don't do that. So yeah, it says this card can only be special summoned by. It can be special by Call the Haunted or Monster Reborn, but it has to be successful the first time. The next kind of card is stuff like TG Halbercam. It says this card cannot be special summoned except by Synchro Summon. Now, when a card says except by, that's a determiner in its game mechanics, meaning Even if you summon him successfully the first time, you cannot Monster Reborn him. You cannot call upon him because it says except by. Meaning you cannot special summon him in any way, shape, or form, period, except by this method. The new problem-solving text that Konami brought out is going to help this along a lot. And we'll see that as we go on. But yeah, if it says except by on it, you cannot Monster Reborn and you cannot call the Haunted because it's not these kind of cards only have one way they can be summoned, only one way, and you can tell that because they'll say except by on them. Most monsters used today do not say except by. Exceed, Synchros, Chaos Sorcerer, Black Leather Soldier, Judgment Dragon, Cyber Dragon, crap. Stuff like that. Now, the next kind of special summon is what's called a non-inherent special summon. Now, inherent special summon are cards like these. They're either special summoned by their own effect or by a game mechanic. That's it. That's an inherent special summon, meaning you did not trigger the summon to happen. It's either by game mechanic or by their own effect. And there's a special summon, and these don't use the chain. Like, none of these effects, when you special summon, create a chain. So, these are inherent special summons. Now, a non-inherent special summon is an example like Dark World monsters. I'm just going to use Latinum as an example. Now, monsters like Latinum, Gold, Silva, Trigodia, Gores, Battle Fader, they special summon when a trigger happens. Now, this guy says when you discard from the hand of the graveyard, you can special summon him. That's a trigger. His effect will activate and use the chain. Gores, Trigodia. When you take damage, you can special summon this card. That's a trigger. It activates. These are called non-inherent special summons. Now, non-inherent special summons use the chain. Now, what does that mean? Well, for starters, it means you cannot use cards that don't negate effects against them. Like Latinum, Gores, Trigodia, all that kind of stuff. You can't use Black Horn of Heaven against it. You can't use Solemn Judgment against it because Solemn Judgment doesn't negate effects, and it can only negate summons. But by the time the effect is resolved, the summon's already happened. You cannot use Thunder King Ryu against it. You cannot use Steel Swarm Roach against it. I mean, a lot of effects only can negate inherent special summons. So that's why Gores and Trigodia are such a pain in the ass, because you have to either Solemn Warning their ass or like Chariot. I mean, that's really your only option in today's meta that I know of. Or Doomcow. Doomcow works too. Never mind. Doomcow. But anyways, so these are called inherent special summons, and they have a trigger effect. It says when X happens, do Y. So like this. When a card is from your hand to the graveyard, do Y, special summon. Like I say, this is Gores. When I take direct battle damage controlling no cards, I can special summon him. When X happens, I'm being attacked, I can do Y, special summon him. So they have a trigger and then an effect, and they do use the chain and activate and resolve. And any monster like this, the special summon by an effect, Gores, Trigodia, Latinum, whatever, you can Monster Reborn. There's no problem with that. Monster Reborn called on, even if you special summon this card and its summon gets negated, like say this is Gores, right? You attack me. I play it from my hand. You play Solemn Warning. Next turn I can play Monster Reborn and bring it back. Because that doesn't matter. But so these monsters aren't affected by that. Even if their summon's negated, you can still bring them back from the graveyard with Monster Reborn and such. So just remember, those are the different types of summons. Remember, it's except by monsters. It cannot be Monster Reborn or Call of the Haunted. If they say except by, you can only bring it out in that one specific way. Monsters just say this card can only be special summoned by, can be brought out with Monster Reborn and Call of the Haunted, as long as their effects aren't negated. And cards like Judgment Dragon and Cyber Dragon and stuff like that do not use the chain. And they're special summoned through their own effect. So that's about it. Hope I covered everything you wanted, Infantry. See you guys later.